everybody. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe Easy podcast. We have a very special guest today, Devanshi. Give us a little rundown of who you are and why you wanted to come on the show today.
Hi everyone, I am Devanshi. I am from India and I came to the US in 2021 at the age of 19 to study biology at University of California, San Diego, UCSD. I'm pursuing my bachelor's in science right now. I'm going to be studying health psychology where I want to study mental health in patients who have chronic illnesses. I wanted to come to this podcast because I was just randomly suggested on Instagram this page, Breathe Easy Podcast.
We get around at the Breathe Easy podcast.
Yeah, and I clicked on it and I was like, oh, this looks very legit. And this is a great opportunity for me to share my story and talk about it. And hopefully my words or my story inspire or even motivate someone. So not like a huge thought behind it, but just a shot in the air. And Zach was very good in responding and he showed interest. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And yeah, here I am.
You were diagnosed when you said 19, right?
Yes, so I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at the age of 19 when I came to the US in 2021. However, I had symptoms all my life, but in India, we don't have newborn screening. We don't have genetic testing in all the hospitals. According to my not very latest updated knowledge, I think genetic testing is present in India in only few selected hospitals, less than 10 hospitals. So,
wow.
And I also didn't have pancreatic symptoms at the time, so it wasn't suspected I might have something like cystic fibrosis. So I was mainly treated for eosinophilic asthma and ABPA, which is allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, which is severe in my case, but cystic fibrosis is moderate.
What were some of those early struggles for you like? What did they look like when you were just a kid? And obviously, like you said, you didn't know that you had CF. What were some of those days like?
I always had symptoms, as I mentioned. They became more noticeable around the time I was 9 or 10 years old, like in 4th or 5th grade. I was coughing up huge amounts of blood. I was coughing 24/7 and
oh my gosh.
It was just bad. Yeah, it sounds a little intense. It was intense at the time. It went on for years and I was coughing a lot and I was malnourished, trouble gaining weight. No matter how much I ate, I was just always very skinny. I was all bones. So I went to one doctor. They diagnosed me with asthma, inhalers and everything. Didn't work. So we went to a tuberculosis specialist after I started coughing up blood because tuberculosis is a little common in India. So we went to the specialist. I don't remember what exactly happened. Even after the tests came out negative because I did not have it, I was still started on the medication. So it was a misdiagnosis, but the doctor was confident. I don't remember. I was too young to realize what was happening. So I was just doing what was being told to do. I was on the tuberculosis medications for I think about 2 months and that further damaged my body. And then I caught pneumonia. It was suspicious if I'm on tuberculosis medications. I shouldn't have gotten pneumonia. I don't know what the exact theory was again. In short, we just consulted another doctor. They referred me to another pulmonologist, a specialist in another city, which was 250 kilometers from my hometown. We went there, a lot of tests, CT scans. By that time, my lungs showed significant damage because of all that coughing and stuff. I was diagnosed with ABPA or aspergillosis. Let me describe a little bit what aspergillosis is. It's like a fungus, Aspergillus fumigatus. So aspergillosis is an allergy to that specific fungus, which is all around us in soil, air, everywhere. I was super sensitive to it. And then eosinophilic asthma, which is like eosinophils are the kind of white blood cells which go very high. I had them like super high in number. For example, the scale is like 0 to 450. Mine were above 3,000. So that's how bad it was. I was started on a lot of medications. The only way to know the medication was working, so I was started on high dose of steroids at that time, which also helped me gain weight, but obviously a significant damage to bones. So my joints hurt, but nothing too severe, nothing of concern.
Yeah.
I mean, they still hurt a lot, so I'm gonna get it checked soon.
Yeah.
At that time, that saved my life. Antifungals and just the regular treatment for asthma and ABPA, but never suspected I might have CF until I came to the US. So that's how my story went.
I bring this up quite a bit. CF is really a full body disease. It really goes through every part of the body and does something to it. I know you're saying because of the meds, it, is making your bones hurt and stuff like that. Also vitamin D deficiency is a huge thing in people with CF, just because at least some of us, our bodies don't like to digest certain vitamins and give them back to our body. That's also a big problem people with CF that I want people to know about as well. It affects about every part of you.
That is very true. I actually currently have a vitamin D deficiency and I should be
See?
taking pills, but
Come on, let's get you
that's
on some
something I'm
vitamins.
procrastinating on.
So that's the thing. Your pancreas and all of your endocrine system, it really does a lot of work for your body, and a lot of people take it for granted. There's a funny song out there that I like to shout out. Weird Al has a song. It's about his pancreas and about how much he loves his pancreas. And I was a kid, I used to sing that song, and I had no idea what a freaking pancreas was, right? But as I got older, now that I deal with CF and a lot of pancreatitis and pancreatic issues, that is something that I really appreciate now, because I do love my pancreas when it is working, and when it's not working, I don't like it very much.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So, you're the chair of the Live Fearlessly Foundation. I just want you to talk a little bit about the Live Fearlessly Foundation and what they're doing, because I think it's very important.
The work they're doing for patients with cystic fibrosis, not just in the US, but all over the world, they've provided activity grants and helped people. That is remarkable. What I do as a chairperson mainly is just manage the logistics work. I recently went
Yeah.
to Washington, D.C. with the founder, Jacob Vendetti, and some other members from the team, and we advocated for and we talked to the senators in the Capitol Hill. We talked about cystic fibrosis, and there were a lot of people with other rare diseases there, a lot of people who didn't know what cystic fibrosis was. So
Yeah.
we told them, we explained them. So it led to like more awareness of the condition. And then we also ran into people whose relatives had CF, other patients with CF. It was pretty cool. We recently expanded our mission to include helping people who might be going through the process of lung transplant.
They're awesome. Let me just put that out there. They are so helpful. They got a really good team on their hands, and it's just incredible that they're doing. They're helping, I say, give the gift of life to people with CF, because I believe that a big part of breaking through a chronic illness is getting yourself in a nice mental health state. That definitely has a lot to do with patient success. Like, them giving these grants out for people who have this illness is helping people stay motivated and look forward to something. If any of you guys can just take a look at the Live Fearlessly Foundation, they're doing incredible stuff. And that leads me into our next topic, mental health and CF. What really attracted me to you when you reached out was your advocacy and struggles with mental health. If you could break some of that down, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thank you for that question. But before I start, I would like to add on to the Live Fearlessly part that we talked about, because I feel this is really important that Jacob Vendetti, the founder, he alone started the foundation. He's so dedicated to helping people. He
Okay.
himself has a long story with mental health struggles. The main goal for this foundation, the mission, is to promote physical and mental health. So
Yeah.
that's what we provide activity grants for, anything that could lead to a better physical or mental health outcome. To answer your question, my experience with mental health related to CF as well was that it might get a little bit intense. So
It's
here's a
okay.
trigger warning.
We're used to it.
I mean, fair. CF people are like some of the strongest people I've met. Like, just wanted to make sure. I was 13 years old. So, as I mentioned earlier, my symptoms became more noticeable around 9 or 10 years of age. I only saw the disease progressing with age because I wasn't getting the right treatment. So,
Yeah.
it was only getting worse. I was about 12 or 13, I think 13. I was just breaking apart. I was like, started feeling hopeless. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it past 16 and stuff. I didn't share those emotions with anyone because I felt nobody understood me, or, like an average teenage mind. Oh, nobody
Of course.
understands me and all that stuff. I had my first self harm incident. I cut myself. It felt that physical pain reduced the intensity of my emotional pain. And gradually over time, I think addicted is too strong of a word. I started doing it too often where I didn't have control. That was something I turned to
Yeah.
relieve my emotional or mental pain. And then I had my first attempt in 2019, and then again in 2020. And now I'm doing fantastic because of the physical health improvements that I've had after being started on the right treatments for CF. When I came to the US and I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and my doctor asked me, what can we do to help you besides what we're already doing? I just said one thing to the doctor, literally verbatim. It was, cure my physical health and my mental health will follow. Literally, my physical health improved. Like, the medicine started working, not like immediately, but gradually I showed improvement. And then
Yeah.
last year I started like exercising exercising, like running and doing more cardio, helped my lungs. And I I skydived from 13,000 feet in a spontaneous act. I just woke up one morning and me and my best friend, we just jumped from the plane, signed
I
the
saw
waiver,
that.
everything. Yeah.
For all of those who are listening, if you go to Devanshi's Instagram page, you can see her literally jumping out of a freaking plane. It's the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, we decided, and we did it the same day we decided that we want to do it. I had no prior plans of doing it. I mean, always I wanted to do something, but I didn't imagine I would do it
Yeah,
anytime soon, you know? I completed a 7 hour hike within the same month. Although, like, that 7 hour hike was intense, so I was definitely sick after that because of exhaustion,
yeah.
but it wasn't like too intense. I completed the hike. I wasn't airlifted or anything, you know? So I achieved other milestones. I ran for a mile straight without taking more
Wow.
than 2 or 3 breaks. So a lot of milestones. So my physical health improved a lot with my commitment to getting physically healthier. I just noticed my mental health got so much better too because, you know, my physical health was not the only, but one of the main things that affected my mental health. You know, I was hopeless. And then
Yeah.
with these improvements, the medications working, I started being hopeful and it motivated me further. I feel great now. I'm confident
Awesome.
in
You sound
myself.
great. That's the big thing I really want to harp on to people is that this disease, it kills you in every way. It is so discouraging. It's crazy when you go your whole life without really thinking you have something or knowing you have something and then having this slam down on you. It really does mess with your mental health. It was a big struggle for me as well. I was just shattered. It just flipped my life upside down. It made me hide away from other people, keep to myself. I didn't think there was anybody else out there that would understand. You said typical teenager thing, and I agree. But I also know as an adult, I had the same thing. In my 20s, when I was diagnosed, I felt like nobody got it. Everybody around you kind of gets around you and says, you need to fight, you need to fight, you need to get up and do it, and you don't want to. You kind of feel like when people do that to you, it's almost degrading in a weird way because you feel like you're,
Invalidating.
yeah, invalidating your feelings, something they don't even fully understand what you're going through. I do want to tell people out there when you support people, try not to be rough on them. I think you need to put your ego or your pride down and understand that you don't really know what this person is going through, but you can be there for them at the same time.
I totally resonate with that because growing up, I was very much bullied, quotation marks, bullied because I was very underweight. So I was like called names like skeleton or like I'm not eating enough and that's why I'm
Mhm.
sick because nobody knew that it was genetic, right? So
Yeah,
everybody was like, it's my habits that are making me sick. And it just felt sad because I was like, no matter what I did, I'm not able to. I can't. That was another component that led me to feel like no matter what I do, I'll always be sick. That just started making me hopeless. Even after I got diagnosed, all I knew was it's a life threatening condition or terminal and the impacts it could have if I don't work on myself. And I used to be the kind of person who was like looking at other people and feeling like crying about it, where like comparing myself to other people, like they can play sports, they can do things that I want to do, they can
yeah,
run and, have fun with people without getting tired and exhausted. And I wanted to be there. And I was like, I want to do that, but I can't. And I felt sorry for myself. And that's okay. I deserve that. I
yeah,
deserve to feel sorry for myself. I deserve sympathy for myself. But if I actually want to get up and do something, I needed to push myself.
of
A
course.
lot of people were like, do strength training, do this, do exercise. And I'm like, I'm doing it. And their words made me feel like I wasn't doing enough because
Yeah,
it wasn't instant results. Because they were like, if you're exercising and working out, your muscles should
yeah,
show and all that stuff. And I'm like, I do want to strength train and exercise. It's gonna help me a lot. I know that. But I
yeah,
cannot get there overnight or within a month. It's gradually. So my lung damage hasn't been a lot. When I came to the US, my lung function was in 60s or around 70%, which is still way better than a lot of people
of
with
course.
CF. Still, my asthma was bad. It was severe. And with those kind of lungs, I cannot build that stamina and that endurance overnight or within a short time.
Yeah,
Not just physical aspect, but also mental aspect, that courage and that motivation to get up and exercise and run and do stuff, that
yeah,
motivation. I gradually started it. I started in 2022 after being diagnosed in 2021. I started 2022. I was still having lung infections after I was started on ivacaftor, the modulator,
yeah,
Kalydeco. Gradually the improvements were showing and it made me motivated and I started working out. And then 2024 May was when I first started running. And then Live Fearlessly Foundation also provided me an activity grant for running shoes.
there you go.
Yeah, and I finally, like around August. I don't remember the exact time, but I completed 1 mile of running within like, it was gradually. I started exercising and running more consistently in 2024, but I was working on it since 2023. Gradually, I started, and when I came to the US in 2021, I could barely walk 2 minutes and I would start coughing and I would get out of breath and like, like asthma attack or something very, very bad.
Yeah.
Now I hike, I can go uphill. I need to take a lot of breaks still. So I just want to say it's like that victim mindset that not just people with CF, I'm not saying people with CF have a victim mindset. They don't.
Yeah.
I think they're some of the strongest people I know. But if you do, even people without CF listening to this, if you have a victim mindset, the solution to that is get up and challenge that.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and cry about it, because I did that. And it's
Yeah.
okay to feel sympathy for yourself and empathy for yourself, but feeling sorry for yourself and victimizing yourself is another thing.
I don't want
Yes.
you to be out there being your own victim. Honestly, when you say the word victimizing, you feel like there's a perpetrator behind that. Realistically, the perpetrator is you if you are not getting yourself out of that funk, or at least trying to.
Exactly. Like feel empathy, feel sympathy for yourself. Take a lot of break, rest, start slow. Like you don't have to get to a goal within a week, a month, or a year. It's okay. Take 5 years.
Yeah.
Start somewhere, be consistent and keep working towards the goal, because if you don't get out of that mindset where you're feeling sorry for yourself consistently, then you don't have the right to be jealous of other people, like they can do stuff and you cannot. It doesn't give the right to cry about it, because if you're not working towards it, then I don't think it's valid to cry about it either.
Yeah. I also think that if you have somebody around you that you love that has a chronic illness or CF or whatever it may be, you also have to play a role in not keeping these people in a box, right? They have to be able to stride for things that they want to try. That's a big problem in the chronic illness community. There obviously is special cases where people need to be looked after because in very, very severe cases. But
Yeah.
in cases where people aren't in need of being looked
Mm.
after 24/7 or having like a mother goose over them, you have to let this person experience life. You can't put them in that box of chronic illness. You need to help them break out of it.
It just reminded me of this. So, whatever I said in the past minute, it may seem too blunt and it may seem too harsh for some people, but I learned it the harsh way from
Yeah.
adversity. Saying goes, adversity makes you stronger. Because I was told literally, if I don't get up and do things, I wouldn't improve. I was told by my
Yeah.
doctors that I need to exercise to be healthy. The medications alone is not going to help me. And I
Yeah.
understand a lot of people with CF cannot exercise, and that is okay. But the thing is that you don't have to run or lift weights, just walk. Some
Stand up.
kind of physical activity. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. And a lot of people, they will tell you, if you're doing something, why isn't it showing results? Don't listen to them. Don't. Take your time. Take 5 years, take 10 years to do something.
Yeah.
As long as you're working on it, as long as you know it and you are improving, you feel good. You feel good about yourself. You feel better. That's all that matters. Don't care about other people's pace and, what they think is fast or slow. Life is not a race. I learned it the hard way. Life is not a race. And even if it is, CF patients are on a very different race than most of the
Of
people
course.
around.
Of course, the way up from the healthier person, the distance between the bed and their feet is a lot shorter than for the people that are sick and ill. Just getting up out of the bed for somebody with a chronic illness and a chronic disease is a huge victory. Just getting up every
Yes,
day, getting yourself somewhere, trying something new, trying a new food, trying a new experience. As you
exactly.
mentioned, Live Fearlessly is not only just providing exercise grants, like for me, they provided musical equipment. Music is my passion, it's my second love, and it's something that is really important to me to keep me in a good mental health.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, the getting out of the bed part, because I always say that to my friends when I'm instigating a conversation, like a deep conversation. I always
Yeah.
ask this question: what is something that motivates you to get out of bed and start another day? It could always be like, what's the point? This day is like just like any other day. You should always have something in your life that motivates you to live another day, start another day. And you just got to find what is it for you. And it doesn't have to be one thing, it could be multiple things. Those things
Yeah.
can keep changing over time as you develop new interests rest, explore new things. But something should always keep you going. And there could be rest days, but still, there should always be something that keeps you in a good mental state, something that makes you just be like, oh, yeah, this day is
Yeah.
worth it.
I need a couple of things before I can get up and drive through that California traffic every day. So that's my
Yeah.
thing. I have a morning routine, and if I don't start it out okay, my day is going to be pretty bad.
And something that helps me to be in that mindset where obviously there's days, where you don't feel motivated. You don't want to do anything. You just want to be in bed all day and just, rot. And that is okay. That is well deserved with the amount of things we have to deal with as CF patients. Something that helps me to be on track, just like thinking before I go to bed each night, just thinking what I need to do tomorrow. What is something new that I want to do? It could be
Yeah.
as simple as, oh, I want to I live in San Diego,
Yeah.
California. So I'm just like, I want to go to the beach, be out in the sun, maybe click
Yeah.
some photos, record some videos. I'm a huge into all that. So
Yeah.
something as small as I want to try this new food, new restaurant, something to look forward to. I want to see my best friend. I want to call my friends and do something. Or
Yeah.
just as simple as I want to watch this movie tomorrow, but
Of course.
something to look forward to. I think that is really motivating.
I want to let all of you know, if you check out Devanshi's Instagram page and you think to yourself, I've never seen somebody so happy. That's the real duality of this situation. She's out there making the best of her life. She did go through all the struggles, and she did go through all of the self-harm and the attempts and everything like that. And she's lifted herself up. So I want to let everybody know to take this as an example that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can find it. Only you know where that light lies. Again, one of the big reasons I started this podcast is I really want to start a big community, and I want you all to know that you're not the only one. We all have went through this. Don't give up. Check out Devanshi's Instagram page and you'll know that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you, Zach. It's interesting you mentioned that quote, light at the end of the tunnel, because
Mhm.
growing up, I used to think that it's such a bullshit quote. Excuse my language, but I used to think it's such a meaningless quote. But
Yeah.
honestly, now that I think about it as an adult after surviving all of that,
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty valid quote. It
She's
took a long
cringing.
time.
She's like, oh, yeah, I'm turning into my parents now, you know?
Exactly. It's it took me a long time. It's like almost all of my teenage years, I spent in depression or self
Yeah.
harm or in a bad place, but I was in a place where I was like, this is never going to get better. Even
Yeah.
just recently, a few months ago, again, intense trigger warning, I had a suicide attempt. I was in the hospital twice in 1 week and I got stitches, a lot of them, on my wrist. And I was like, even after all these years, nothing has changed. I'm still in that same mental space. I'm still having lung infections every now and then, and I'm
Yeah.
tired. Okay, so overall, I'm good, but I still, when I'm around sick people, I can contract infections. So that was
Yeah.
one case. And I was like, I'm still in that space where I'm still getting sick. I'm still out of breath. I'm still limited to the things I can do. I mean, I skydived, I completed hike, but, I'm still at such a risk where I cannot be around sick patients and, things that healthier people could do, things like running a marathon. I cannot dream of running a marathon even now,
Yeah.
even after almost feeling perfectly fine. There's so many things. And I felt sorry for myself again. I was at that place, I was like, this is the end that led to that attempt. And I was like, I'm done here. I wrote a letter and everything, a goodbye letter. It was sad. My friend saved my life. She called the help on me and I was taken to the hospital. And I'm really grateful to her because that day, something just sparked inside me. I was like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm no longer addicted to the self harm, but even this once in a year thing that's happening to me where I'm in a very low spot and I feel demotivated and I'm like, it's the end of the world. Why am I still sick? Why I still have to take medications? Because that's a huge thing in people with CF. Why do I have to take so many medications?
Of
Other
course.
people don't have to. Why am I taking pills like drinking water? Just so many. I was in that place and I was like, I don't want to do this even once a year. I don't want to do this ever. I don't ever want to be in that spot again. For the first time, I focused on not the problem, but the solution. What is a solution to this? What is a permanent solution? Because I've tried temporary solutions. I've tried distracting my mind from when I'm feeling that way, but that doesn't solve a permanent problem. And the
Yeah.
permanent solution, I worked towards it and I found the permanent solution specific to what my problems were. I started exercising and started being consistent. I have a vision board on my wall, which I'm looking at right now,
That's
which
awesome.
is all the motivations, all the plans that I want to do and that keeps me motivated. I was at that place where it's dark and it's never going to get better. better. But then few months later, just few months, not even years later, just few months later, I'm right now at a spot where I'm like, I haven't had a single
That's
mood swing
incredible.
since that day because I just feel good. I know what I want. I know what the solutions for now are. I might feel like that again, maybe, who knows? I don't know. At
No,
least I know that I want to live and I want to do. And I found the purpose of my life. I know I'm too young to be talking about this. I'm just
not at
22.
all. Not at all.
Just asked myself, what is the purpose of my life? Because I often found myself talking about what is life? Everybody dies one day. What's the point of just going through all this struggle? So
Yeah.
that was my thought process. I was like, what is the purpose of my life? What am I bringing to the world? What is one thing that makes me unique?
Yeah.
And I found it. The purpose of my life is to, even if I
Of
cannot
course.
physically do it, I talk about it. Maybe my story, my words could inspire someone. I'm not intentionally going after it that, oh, I want to be like inspiring people. But I hope it does. Something I found the purpose of my life is to help people. And that's why I want to go into health psychology, which is studying mental health in patients who have chronic illnesses. Because I wish growing up, people and doctors didn't just focus on my physical health, but also how my physical health affected my mental health. That's why I want to study health psychology.
I guess it's because it's kind of a quick fix, and you think of it like a hose that has a lot of holes popping up, and you're like, okay, we need to patch all of these holes quick, or this thing's going to blow. I think a lot of the time the answer is in the medical field to give people supplemental help, like pills, whatever it may be, which are important and have saved a lot of lives. I do want to be clear about that. We also have to get down to the nitty gritty and the root cause to this stuff as well, like you said, and it is that lack of motivation that just stagnates us and it basically kills us. It really can kill you faster, way faster. I'm not saying nothing else is going to kill you if you have a chronic illness, because obviously, right? But I mean, you have to get out of that stagnant state or it's just going to eat you alive. And you are a big proponent of that. I was going to even ask, how much of a role do you think this advocacy has played in your coming out of that dark place?
That is a good question. So, honestly, I feel I'm not doing enough and I haven't done enough. And I think that is valid because I just started getting into this and I just started figuring out what exactly want to do and how exactly I want to, fulfill the purpose of my life, like help people. So, I'm just starting and I feel I haven't done enough. I learned it the hard way that being hard on yourself is not the solution.
No.
So, I'm just working on making connections and talking to more people and how I can help. I talk to people, I make connections given how social I am. And I do talk to people about if they have any job opportunities or any internship offers. And they agree and they show interest that they're willing to offer something, help me connect with something. But I don't want to do just anything for money or for opportunity. I want
Yeah.
to do something that is related to what I want to do, like CF community or respiratory health or mental health, research, genetics. Those are my interests. So I want to do something related to that. As I mentioned earlier, I am not doing enough, but I think so far what I've done, even on a small level, I think it has helped some people, especially Live Fearlessly Foundation keeps me so much motivated because seeing Jacob do all that, again, I don't want to say he's doing it alone because there's so many people that are with him. I am with him. We're supporting him, but he is doing so much on his own as well, which is remarkable. And that just inspires me so much.
Yeah.
That is motivating for me. I just follow in his footsteps. I learn from him.
He's
Yeah.
incredible. He
And
really inspires me. I mean, just looking at him, when I heard about the Live Fearlessly Foundation, my Kaiser social worker sent out all of the links. And out of every foundation or grant program there is out there, the thing that really caught my eye with Live Fearlessly is that there's a figurehead. I think all of the other ones out there are kind of nameless, faceless. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They still do a lot of good for the community. But
yeah.
Jacob is just so relatable. I looked at the dude and I was
Yes.
just like, man, I love this dude. He is just so full of life, so hopeful, even though maybe he doesn't show everything on camera. Obviously, I'm not going to show all of my breakdowns on camera either, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and the best thing that I like about him, he's selfless and he
yeah,
doesn't seek to gain profit. He's not getting anything much from like what he's doing for people except the support and the love and the that sense of like fulfillment that he's able to help people. That's amazing. That's inspiring. Going back to the conversation about the light at the end of the tunnel, I haven't achieved a lot connecting the last two questions, but I feel that I'm getting there and I would love to do so much more. Also, whoever is listening to this, if you know of anything that I could be of help with, don't worry about how much you need to pay me. I don't care much about how much I get paid. It's okay. Just let me know if there's anything I can do to help because I want to help. Because I tried so hard to find what is something that makes me happy. Because my best friend and I, we talk a lot of philosophical stuff and
Of
philosophical
course.
questions we ask
That's
each
the
other.
best stuff.
And she asked me, "So what is something that makes you happy, Devanshi?" And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't know. I was like, oh, wait, good food? I mean, yeah, it does make
Yeah,
me happy.
yeah.
What if I'm not hungry? What makes me happy then? I found the answer, though. Something that makes me happy is that sense of feeling where I feel that I was able to help someone or at least inspire or motivate someone. Like something good that happened to someone else because of me. I
Yeah.
think that's what makes me happy. I'm always looking for motivation, and that's something that's motivating for me to keep going. If I don't want to live for myself at any point, I know what I want to do. I want to live for somebody else. Going back to your question, I haven't advocated much. Going to Washington, D.C. last week was my first time getting into advocacy at a political level. I really loved it, and I think I learned a lot from that trip. I want to go more into it. So I'm going to educate myself more on healthcare policies. I hope to do more and make a direct change.
Obviously, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I will say personally that I think you are doing a lot. And I know that you can push yourself to do more by thinking maybe you haven't done a lot. And I do encourage you to continue doing what you're doing and doing more and going above and beyond. But I think the distance from the bed to our feet is so much longer than other people. And I think that you doing what you're doing is a lot. And maybe for some people's standards, it wouldn't seem like it, but to me, and I think to almost everybody, it will be. Just you advocating like you, I haven't been out to Washington, D.C., So I really appreciate that you're there as a figurehead, you and Jacob and Drew from the Beyond the Data
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a great support.
He's awesome too. Yeah, I love the guy. He's really cool. You are doing a lot, and I want to give you that credit. If nobody else has, I want to give you that credit. I started the podcast because I am exactly the way you are in that sense that I really found purpose. I'm 27, I'm pushing 30, which is a whole nother realm of depression that you get into because of the aging. But it's also a badge of honor for a CFer. For most
Yeah,
people,
I was
turning
gonna
30
say
is just crappy, right? But you turn 30 as a CFer and it's like a goalpost.
that's
So
a huge thing.
I started the podcast because I want to help people. And as a person that struggles with mental health or depression, I still have my days where
Yeah,
everything is hopeless. People around me go out and hang out or go do something, and I can't go do it because I'm too under the weather and I feel like crap and I can't get up. It just destroys you. And it's not their fault. They're living their life and they're doing the things they like to do. As somebody with it, feeling just lesser or like you're missing out on life, it's crushing in that way. But I think this has been my escape from all of that. This has been the thing that is now driving me forward. And I think you doing this advocacy, the more and more you do it, the more and more you're going to find you're getting closer and closer to that happiness goalpost.
I appreciate it. But I think I haven't mentioned it. Breathe Easy podcast, that is a really great idea to help people because you are enabling people to like share their stories with other CFers, which is a huge thing because for people like me who get inspired from other people and that's my motivation,
Yeah.
it's so powerful to listen to other people's stories and learn that if they can do it, I can do it. I look at other CFers, their CF is much worse than mine. Going through lung transplant and stuff and then running a marathon and doing things or achieving things, not even marathon but just basic stuff. Like
Yeah.
the energy they have. I mean, if they can do it after going through all that, I can definitely do it. So you sharing stories of other people through something like this, I think it's a really great idea and I really support this. So
Yeah.
keep doing this. Don't give up on this project. Keep doing
Not at
it.
all. No, no, never. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's getting me up out of bed currently, that and my 9 to 5, but this is my passion and my love and my dream. And I do like my job. I don't want to say I don't. I love my job. I do very fun work, but this is where my heart is. And talking to people like you not only inspires me, but I know it's going to touch other people out there that are going through the same thing. This podcast is set up for everybody. I'm really trying to get a hold of anybody with chronic illness because even as CF is a subsection of chronic illness community, we are all so similar in our own way. And we all go through this battle of mental health. It's one thing that spreads far and wide throughout the chronic illness community. I mean, no matter what, it really doesn't matter if you have IBS, if you have the first guest had TRPS, Rachel. This mental health struggle, it spreads through every community and it's like a wildfire. And we need to be the firefighters, me and you, and put this
Yeah.
fire out. I just want to ask you, from the little time that you've been doing it, have you noticed an impact that you've made? Do you think that you've been touching people's lives? And I can already tell you from you telling me about you going to Washington D.C. and talking about CF and teaching people about the illness is a big impact, in my opinion. Have you noticed any big impacts that you've made on people's lives since you started?
I haven't gotten much feedback from people, but I do know people from India who have seen my story on community blog of CF Foundation. I had a blog up there.
Yeah.
They talked to me, asked me for information and stuff and to know more about my story. And they follow me on Instagram and they said that I was inspiring. They learned a lot from me and, words like those. So I think I have gotten some positive feedback in that sense, more so from people who don't have CF, but they have seen my story. Like I mentioned earlier, that mentality where they're like, if they can do it, I can do it too. And people have said they've learned that from me, where they were like, oh, if you can do it, I can do it. You're so inspiring and motivating. I don't mean to be like arrogant about it, but I like answering your question, I think, like, according to what people have told me, I have made an impact. I don't know how big or small, but I've been told that I have inspired and motivated them.
I have an analogy for CF. I shared it on the first episode, but I like to share it on this episode as well. The issues with CF are primarily due to the mucus that builds up in our body. Our bodies produce very thick mucus and secretions in general, really, that cause clogs in our body, if you want to think of it like that. There's a lot of issues that mucus can cause in your body that people don't even think about. We don't even think that mucus is in all of these places in our body. I like to equate it to like motor oil. Your mucus is your motor oil and your body is the motor. The way motor oil works in a car or in a motor is that it lubricates the motor and makes sure that everything is moving nice and smooth and that your car runs properly. Our motor oil in our body is thick and old and clumpy and messed up, and it ends up making our motors not work so well. If motor oil is the mucus in our body, then I think that the mental aspect is the gasoline. And I think that obviously the gasoline is what combusts in the car motor and makes the car propel forward. I truly believe that the mental health is the gasoline in the car. It's what makes the car move. It's what makes us go forward. We can't run ourselves out of gasoline, everybody, if you get what I'm saying. We have to
I
make sure our tank is full.
I like that analogy. Like, wait, were you a mechanic or what? Like something like that.
No,
Like, I don't know.
no, no, no. I don't want to claim to be a mechanic. Is it going to be like one of those things where I have to say I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving you medical advice? I'm not a mechanic, I'm not giving you mechanical advice, okay?
No, I'm messing around, but no, I like that analogy, and that is very accurate. It's a thick, sticky mucus which could clog your airways in the lungs or the ducts in the pancreas, and then it causes problems.
With my CF and my pancreatitis, I'm like a kind of a special case. They call me a very rare mutation. I have the normal F508del, but the second mutation, the R1066H that I have is very rare, actually. It's rare amongst even the CF community, which is already a pretty rare community, I will say. When I started getting stomach pain and everything, I would go to the ER. You tell them where the pain's at, and they kind of can deduce from there where it's coming from, what it is. And they say, okay, it seems like your pancreas from where you're telling us this pain is. So I got lipase work done, which is what they will do for you if they're trying to test you for pancreatitis. They will test your lipase enzymes or your amylase enzymes. The amylase is usually done through the stool. So they do blood for the lipase to see if your lipase is high or not. And that usually is indicative of pancreatitis if it's high. My lipase was always high. I never had pancreatic insufficiency. I had reoccurring bouts of pancreatitis. And it was never caused by pancreatic insufficiency, actually, which is strange. But yeah, that was where when I started figuring out that I had CF is because I started going to the hospital more and more frequently. The pancreatitis, from there, I kind of figured out that I had CF. I went to urologists and they found out that I didn't have vas deferens, which is kind of a CF centric issue. And they can really narrow it down pretty severely once they find out that you don't have your vas deferens because it's kind of a CF thing. The
Yeah.
guy was like, "You had a vasectomy?" And I was like, "No, not to my knowledge, unless one of those backroom doctors came in my bedroom or something and, took out my vas deferens. I don't know." But yeah, that was how I figured out I had CF. I
That
was,
sounds painful.
it is painful. It's extremely painful. I
Yeah,
really
because pancreatitis, like I've had gastritis, gastroenteritis, and that was painful. So I cannot imagine pancreatitis. Like that is, according to my knowledge, it's way painful than gastritis.
It's actually within the top 10 most painful things that you can experience as a human being. It's very painful, and that's where I started figuring it out because that obviously wasn't normal. I even talked to my last guest about this. Pre-diagnosis, I used to smoke cigarettes because I had no idea. I really had no idea. I just thought I was like, I had a little cough every now and again, and I was kind of like, it's just who I am. It's how I am. I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to do all kinds of, bad things with my body. Like I used to drink. Then I found out about this, and I was like, put the brakes on all of that. you know?
No, that's very interesting. A lot of people they just like with healthy body, they just
Yeah,
take I'm not applying this to you, but like a lot of people take things for granted, their health for granted.
yeah.
Like for example, I cannot be around somebody who smoke, not just for physical aspect, but also like
It's just
I just
gross.
cannot. Yeah, I just cannot
Yeah,
look at them like I would do anything to have healthy lungs to breathe
yeah,
normally
yeah,
and you're just destroying them like that? Like are you
yeah.
kidding me?
I look at it this way, okay? If you're going to smoke cigarettes and you're going to drink alcohol and you're going to do all of that stuff, you really don't have plans for your life moving forward. And I think you really are in a dark place. And I think for me, anyway, I was in a dark place before I ever even got CF because I was doing stuff like that, and I didn't really know about it at the time because I was masking it with all of this stuff. I think that was an outlet for me was smoking and drinking and doing all of that stuff because I was already in a really bad state of mind. And I don't think you can be in a very good state of mind if you're doing something like that. I just don't.
There's a thing where people do this because they're in a bad mental health state, or they do it and that's why they're in a bad mental health state,
Ah,
you
yeah,
know?
that's true. That's true.
So it's very relatable and interchangeable. But but the thing is that it's still not okay, but it's reasonable if you do it in moderacy and like, you just try it out or you do it
Yeah,
socially. There's a limit to everything. If you do anything above limit, like people smoking a pack a day, that's like
that's crazy.
that's just that's like do you just not value your life? It's
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, I
It's
think some
it's
of them
plain
don't.
sad.
And I think that really is the question of the year, I think it's these people can't value their life that much. And that's really sad, like you said. But I think it also is a mental health struggle. And whether they trudge themselves into it by their own accord or by doing these things purposefully, it is a mental health thing in that aspect. Because I've known people in my life that started out drinking because it was social or it was fun, like you said, and then the depression hits and it's like I need this to not feel something anymore. I guess I could equate it to, like you said, cut themselves or do self harm on themselves. They are technically doing a form of self harm. At a point, they are kind of harming themselves. They're destroying their livers, they're destroying their kidneys, they're destroying their
Yes.
lungs. They're not externally harming themselves, but they are internally harming themselves.
You mention it that way and I see what you're trying to say and I agree. That's definitely valid, but it's still sad and it's just people do that socially or to be cool or just occasionally. But when
Yeah.
they hit the rock bottom, that's their means, like, that's their solution or that's what they turn to.
Again,
Because
getting out and
that's
jogging is a lot better than going to the bar every weekend, everybody. So
yeah.
if you have any control, go out and do some physical activity or get yourself involved with a community program or something. It will take away all of that burden from you, or at least
Yeah.
some of it. I don't want to say all of it,
That's
but some of
that
it.
takes a lot of that takes a lot of self-awareness though. But you
That's
mentioned
true.
that. I will say something. So I have a wall above my desk where I have all the stuff like the motivational stuff, my
Yeah,
vision board
yeah,
and, small quotes and small schedule planners. And there's this post-it note which says, it's to remind myself whenever I'm feeling like I'm having a breakdown or feeling low or giving up.
yeah.
And it goes like, go for a walk and see how you feel before you act on your urges. No
Of course.
excuses. That works. You don't know, like, because you are in that moment, you're feeling it's the end of the world. And I'm not saying going out and taking a walk is going to solve your problems or, permanently solve that emotional state of mind,
Yeah,
but it's going to reduce the intensity. And everyone listening out there, like, trust me on this, it will reduce the intensity and it will pull you out from that emotional state of mind to a better, wise state of mind. Tried, tested, and worked.
yeah,
So
of course.
definitely recommend. If
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't work out for you, sure, I'll take the
don't push
blame. It
yourself.
doesn't work out.
Yeah,
But yeah, but if it doesn't work out, sure, will you find another solution that works for you.
yeah,
But first, at least try this at least once. When you're feeling sad, low, demotivated, or having a breakdown, or just bad in general, or
yeah.
negative, no matter the weather, pick yourself up, go out. If it's snowing outside, if it's sunny, if it's stormy, no worries. Just go out, take a walk, and then come back and see how you feel. Maybe
Yeah.
you would even forget that you were feeling that way?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
or
go out.
for me, a big one was poetry. I would get down and I would get really depressed, and it didn't matter if I had a pen and paper in front of me. It didn't matter if I had anything. If I just did in my notepad in my phone, I would write poetry. And poetry is anything that is raw emotion and feeling being put into writing.
Yeah.
So you sit down for a little while and you write something like dark. It can be the darkest thing ever. And
Yeah.
you will realize that it's almost purging all of that crud out of you. Again, coupled with the physical activity, because you do need that as well. I do think that physical body activity or physical motion actually is a huge proponent of getting you out of dark places like that.
Whatever works for you, like, like for you, poetry, writing worked. For me, physical activity works. Whatever works for whoever is listening to this, just try it out. Whenever you're in that state of mind, do what works for you and then see how you feel. Don't take any actions, don't do anything before you try that thing out. Make that a rule, make that a habit. That's just like, just set on it.
Yeah.
But hey, Zach, you mentioned poetry. Have you published anything?
Oh, that's a whole different story. Writing it and putting it out is a little bit different. But you know what? As I'm getting into podcasting stuff and I'm putting myself out there more, I am getting more and more confident with public speaking and putting myself just raw and real out there. And I think if me publishing any of my poetry is going to help anybody out there or, show them what it's like to write something very deep and dark, I'm totally down to put some poetry out after this episode. So if anybody's
Zach,
interested.
coming from a person, again, as I mentioned before, coming from a person who gets inspired by other people's stories so easily and gets motivated, not just inspired, I think there are more people like me out there,
I'm
obviously.
sure, yeah. Yeah.
So I highly recommend publish them or release them, however you want to do this. Like,
Well, you guys
there's
heard it.
always,
Devanshi told me to do it, and I'm going to do it. So that's the plan after
yes,
this episode.
yes.
Tune in.
Or,
We're gonna
yeah, we're
put
just
Zach's
gonna wait.
poetry out. Maybe I'll do one of those poetry readings. I'll put a beret on and I'll put little sunglasses on and do a little
Yes,
poetry reading podcast or something. That'd be cool.
yes. I'm gonna
So
follow up with you on that and be like, where are you at with that plan?
it's gonna be a once a week extra podcast of me wearing a beret in front of a camera.
Whatever works for you. I mean, I think it would suit you though.
Oh, thank you. I want to thank you very much for coming on. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff on this episode. Give us one last hurrah. Give us anything that you want to shout out, final words, anything that you really want to get out there at the end of this podcast, just so everybody out there can hear it and be inspired.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share whatever I did share, and really means a lot to me to be able to have a platform like this to speak. I would love to learn more about your story. I don't think we've talked enough about it, but I'd love to know more about it.
I do have an episode. It's the
Oh wait,
second episode.
the first one where you
Yeah.
introduced yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
there's a big, it's like it's not everything. Obviously, I couldn't remember everything to put in that episode. And as we go through this podcast, I'm going to break it down a little bit more and more for everybody listening. But that first or second, it would be the second episode of me just talking about who I am, what's going on. Anybody listening to this, go take a listen to that one and check out who I am. It's a big proponent and why I'm even doing this podcast in the first place. I again want to reiterate that once we get this thing off the ground, 50% of all the revenue earned is going to go into charities like the CFF, like Live Fearlessly. This is a chronic illness podcast. It's not just a CF podcast, it's a chronic illness podcast. So, any other chronic illness charities out there, especially going forward, I want to put money that is earned from this podcast into those charities. Knowing that, Devanshi, you are doing a really great thing by being on this podcast. You're doing, it's even more advocacy and more charity.
It's together. We both doing it, not just alone.
No, honestly, I'm nothing. I want to reiterate to all of the guests and all the people out there, I'm nothing without you guys. And this is nothing without you guys. I get it's we and I get it's us, but you guys are the biggest proponent of the podcast. Your stories, your experiences are going to be the biggest part of this podcast. I could have just made a podcast with myself going, da 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 all day long, but you guys are the biggest part of the podcast for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Always happy to support, and you're doing great work. But yeah, my final words would just be like, do anything, go slow, do anything, take breaks, anything, but give up. Never give up. Trust me, I've tried multiple
Oh,
times, and
yeah.
even my friends, so we're very much into dark humor, and my friends were like, "You've done it so many times. How are you still bad at it?"
Yeah.
Like at giving up. That's how me and my friends are. Yeah, no, the thing is, do anything but give up. I've tried it, and trust me, I've never been happier after surviving that phase, that mental
Yeah.
state. I'm the happiest person ever after going through all that. Touch wood. I don't want to jinx it,
Touch
but
wood.
yeah, so just one thing, anything but give up. And if you ever want to just talk to me, I know it may seem like I've been through so much, so I might be sensitive, but trust me, if it comes to other people's stuff, I'm very not sensitive in terms of like I can tolerate it, I can handle it. So if you want to just talk, no trigger warnings, just talk to me, say anything to me, I will listen. If anything, if I can provide suggestions or advice, I'll just listen. Just reach out to me. My Instagram, Zach, if you can share that, or if you
Of
want to
course.
reach out to me on email or my LinkedIn, I could tell Zach to share all of that information.
All
Yeah.
of the links from all of the guests are going to be put in the description below on YouTube, on X, wherever this ends up going. It's going to be in the description boxes. And I really implore you all to make sure that you're checking our guests out and supporting them with the full wrath of the CF community and Breathe Easy community and all of these communities. I want to make sure that they get all of the support that they could ever hope for. I want to shout out being an organ donor, so I would really love all of you guys to look into organ donating. These organ donations, especially for people with CF, are huge. I mean, they're giving life to people. I think that everybody can make a huge difference. You can stay alive an extra 13, 14 years with your organs in somebody else's body. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think you live on that way. And I want to shout out the Live Fearlessly Foundation, of course, because they're incredible. And I really, really want you guys to go and look at the Live Fearlessly Foundation. They're a huge inspiration for me. A big reason this podcast even exists. Drew over at the Beyond the Data, he's also a huge reason this podcast exists because, I mean, he's like the first guy I've ever seen doing something even similar to this. I want to shout him out. I want to shout out the CFF. Take a look at all of that stuff, the literature. I just really want to thank you again, Devanshi. I think you have just been so awesome. I think people they're just gonna love your story. They're gonna love you as a person and your positive nature.
You're very kind. Thank you so much. I hope people listen to it and think that like they take away something from it at least. So
Of
yeah,
course.
thank you so much for this opportunity, and looking forward to listening to myself. It's often weird hearing myself, but I'm looking forward to listening to
Try
this
not to
podcast.
listen too hard because it starts sounding I know, trust me, because I
I
edit
get
these things and it's like, oh
Yeah,
I
no,
can't
I get
stand
it.
myself.
I
Yeah,
cringe by my own voice.
so Devanshi, thank you so much for being on. Everybody, breathe easy and let's get something real started here.